21-year-old Dominic Joshua, managing director of little-known investment firm Brisk Capital Ltd, has been arrested for defrauding investors to the tune of 2 billion naira. Just 7 months ago, he was featured in media or print media as an investment bank disruptor, complete with celebrity endorsements for his company. His company promised investors a whopping 60% return on investment. Joining us to discuss further is Messi, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Lawrence, you're very, very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a topic we've touched on so many times here. Red flags. I mean, we're going to talk about this now, and probably 3 months down the line, there will be another investor who has been featured as a superstar in the investment space, and then he'll or she will get arrested again. But let's do it for our viewers. What are the red flags that investors have to look out for when you hear that you can get a 60% return on investment from somebody who is pitching this sale?
Thank you for having me. First, investors have to look out for 3 things. First, they have to look at the external environment. What do I mean by the external environment? I mean the rate at which the economy is growing. Yes, companies can grow faster than the economy, but there is usually a threshold. If it passes that threshold, then it's actually a red flag to some sort of malpractice or some unethical dealings. The second thing they need to look out for is the general shape of the economy. What's the inflation rate? What's the unemployment rate? These are just basic indicators that anyone can have access to and can understand how good or how bad the economy is going. So currently, Nigeria is at an 18.12% inflation rate, yes. 33% unemployment rate. Growth is just up 0.51%. Interest rates are barely going up to just between 6 to 10%. So for someone to promise you 60% returns on an investment, it's highly impossible that this is actually a legitimate investment, and it could be a Ponzi scheme. The second thing they need to look out for, company fundamentals. These are internal factors. What's the corporate governance of the company? What are their financials if they are available? What's their trend over time? What are their operations like? They should have business plans and manuals out there. If they should have a website, these documents should be there for investors to actually go through and know what exactly they are dealing with. Lastly is the regulatory framework. Do these companies have licenses from the CBN, from the SEC? Because evidently, companies that deal in such investments or savings platforms must be regulated.
Fantastic. I mean, look, Monday we talked GDP, yesterday MPC, inflation, everything. It's so interesting. The timing of this case coming up today, following 2 days when we've talked extensively about the Nigerian economy, that feeds into your point about looking at what the environment is like before you go and take a 60% return. Look, unfortunately, there's been a trend here. This is similar to Invictus Obi. He was featured on the cover of Forbes Africa, and then he's in jail right now. There's that FBI case where a number of Nigerians were rounded up for fraudulent matters with respect to investments. What's the popular guy's name in the Middle East?
Hush Puppy.
Hush Puppy, thank you. He also claimed to be a real estate person. Look, Nigeria has made a lot of good news with respect to tech investments and a lot of tech entrepreneurs coming out of the space. But unfortunately, what's with this other trend? How would you characterize it?
I believe first, it's actually down to first the leadership. I believe our leadership is not leading the line in terms of accountability and development. And of course, the citizenry will tend to look out for themselves as a result. And this would be by hook or by crook, basically. And this translates to them going into fraud. They just want to do anything they can to survive. And why are they now going past the level of surviving into living extravagant lifestyle? That is now down to peer pressure and social media influence. People want to live these kind of fantasy lives that they see out there, and they lose some sense of morality. And then lastly, unemployment and underemployment. Like we said previously, unemployment is 33%. People don't have jobs. There are no jobs out there. And even the jobs that are out there are not utilizing citizens effectively to their core strengths. So when you take all this into consideration, I'd rather not work at a 9 to 5 that's not using my skills or that's not respecting me, and I'd rather just go into fraud and make as much money as I can. So these 4 factors actually flow from one end to another as well. So that's what's causing this trend of fraud abroad and even within Nigeria.
Nigeria itself. Look, we had on the morning show 2 days ago, the governor of Cross River State, he came on, where Cross River has a combined unemployment of, I think, 60-70%. Imo State's the highest. I mean, you're quoting 33% for national. When you break it down into the states, Imo, Taraba, Cross River, I mean, it's really ugly when you get down to the state level. But thanks for sharing that. This is almost, I don't know if this is a redundant question. Why do people keep falling for these things? Like, so you're an analyst, right? You've got friends that say, hey, Lawrence, I just heard about this investment that's going to promise me this. What do you think? I get the same calls. Our viewers that watch this business show also try to get advice on these things. But again and again, the news keeps popping up. But, you know, are we not doing our jobs to inform people of, you know, these red flags? Why do people keep falling for these schemes? Because this is 2 billion naira, and this gentleman defrauded people in forex and real estate, in, you know, a number of other investment classes. You know, why do people keep falling for the hook, line, and sinker?
To start with, first, people keep falling for this not because of their own fault. It's because the fraudsters are getting smarter. If we actually analyze how Dominic Joshua's scheme went about, he had a website, he had an investment brochure.
A brochure, yes. How many pages was that brochure?
That was 28.
28 pages.
28 pages.
Yeah.
And that actually, it syncs with what other industries like the United Capitals, all these investment banks do. They have their service offerings in a brochure. You can print online. They have an online presence rather than other Instagram stores that just show you pictures of money and then you know these ones are obviously illegitimate scams. But these ones have an online presence with news about their investments and their companies, their subsidiaries, and then brochures. So it paints that semblance of authenticity, but it's not actually there. So it appeals to people's sense of, wow, okay, they have a website, they have this, they start ticking these conditions of their box, and they say, yes, this has to be viable. But then the one thing that they fail to account for is that it is highly impossible to get even up to 10% ROI per month,
right? Because
that actually translates to 100% ROI in a year.
So, I think 120% if you multiply by 12 months.
Sorry,
yeah, 120%. Insane. The Central Bank of Nigeria, just yesterday, the monetary policy outcome, Central Bank governor talked about cryptocurrencies, talked about the risk. SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, has done the same. What more can regulators do? Because they've talked and talked and talked. They've done the best they can. What else can regulators do to protect investors?
To start with, it's actually a joint effort by both regulators and also the populace, actually. So, having looked at the CBN website, CBN has a list of 11 different types of institutions in which it supervises. And looking at the SEC website, it also has a list of every single firm that is a capital market operator in one transaction or another. So for the CBN, you have things like commercial banks, payment service banks, merchant banks, non-interest banks. We can't list all 11. And then for the SEC, you have things like venture capital, even solicitors, because to issue deals, lawyers have to be present. Solicitors are capital market operators. We have the issuing houses. We also have the receiving bank. So a lot of firms operate in the capital. It's not just the financial firms. So what they need to do is that the CBN, the SEC, they need to ensure proper listing and registration. And they need to make this directory, which is a list of all companies or firms that are involved in investments or savings or payments on their websites that's easily accessible to the public, so that the public can, okay, I just saw this firm that has 60%. Let me check the CBN's directory. Are they there? If they are not there, then you know that's number one red flag and you should not invest. So that's what regulators can do. They can issue licenses, physical copy licenses that will be present in their offices so that investors can actually go and look at this, and then signs for authenticity so that it cannot be replicated.
Great stuff. There was a tweet from a celebrity. Can't get to. We've run out of time. Lawrence Messi, great stuff. Very informative. Investors have to be careful. Please be careful with rosy investment options and choices.